Mangwana ni Mwalelepo Vokejani Kleklas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, your trusted roundup of key developments across the continent. Today we start in Zambia, where President Hakainde Hichilema has ended the national mourning period amid Lungu burial stalemate. In Zimbabwe, the government's endorsement of a $400 million hospital contract linked to controversial businessman Wicknell Chivayo has sparked national outcry. In South Africa, Julius Malema's UK visa rejection ignites a debate on free speech and extremism. UNICEF issues a stark warning about child malnutrition, while the Eastern Cape mourns flood victims. Plus, Africans are being evacuated from the Middle East. China and Egypt are calling for peace. The DRC and Rwanda gear up for a crucial peace agreement. And Nigeria launches local test kit production after US aid exit. Watch the show on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, oneup2.com, and NTV Africa on YouTube, as well as Africa Good Morning on TikTok. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories shortly.
Taking flight has never been easier. Paratus is introducing Sky-Fi internet packages with speeds that will have you reaching for your seatbelts, starting from $500 million excluding VAT per month, with speeds reaching up to 10 megabits per second. There's even a prepaid option where you can top up your Sky-Fi internet for just $15 million per gigabyte. No contracts, no fuss. Visit your nearest Paratus branch to find out more, or go to paratus.africa/Namibia to sign up online.
Always prepared, Paratus.
In Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema has formally declared the end of the national mourning period for former President Edgar Lungu, citing an unresolved dispute with Lungu's family regarding his burial. Lungu died 2 weeks ago while in South Africa, and arrangements had been made to bring his body home. However, in a statement issued from State House in Lusaka, President Hichilema explained that although the government and the family had agreed to repatriate the late president's remains on Wednesday, the former president's body was not availed by the family for repatriation.
Fellow citizens, as we mark the 14th day since the demise of our 6th Republican president, Mr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, we reflect on the past 2 weeks, not only as a period of mourning, but a time for healing, and indeed a test of our resolve as a peace-loving and law-abiding nation. We wish to begin by expressing our gratitude to the Church, our traditional leaders, and the citizenry for their moral and spiritual guidance during this difficult time. We also wish to thank our envoys, including our former Vice President, Mr. Enoch Kabindele, His Royal Highness Chief Mumbi, our Foreign Affairs Minister, the Secretary to the Cabinet, and all others involved in the search for a reasonable, inclusive, and amicable resolution over the unfortunate impasse relating to the state funeral. We express sincere gratitude to President Cyril Ramaphosa and the people of South Africa for their exceptional cooperation and indeed compassion. We acknowledge those citizens, including business owners, whose operations have been affected during this difficult time. We thank you for As you are all aware, our government has made numerous efforts to engage the family and representatives of the late president in order to reach consensus in expressed through the joint press briefing held in South Africa. This breakthrough brought relief to the nation, and we were prepared to receive the remains of the late 6th Republican president on Wednesday, 18th of June. It was agreed that This was to be followed by programs that would have culminated in a dignified burial on Monday, the 23rd of June. By virtue of this positive development, we extended the mourning period by another 9 days, and we began to fulfill all of our commitments towards the state funeral with full honors. Yesterday, June 18th, the people of Zambia were prepared to receive the remains of our former president, but were surprised by the family's reversal of their agreed course of action. At our request, the South African government prepared extensively with military honors mounted by the South African Defence Force, who did so in vain, as the former president's body was not availed by the family for repatriation to Zambia. For this unfortunate situation, we extend our sincere apologies to President Ramaphosa, the government, and the people of South Africa. Fellow citizens, our country cannot afford a state of indefinite mourning. We've done everything possible to engage the family of our departed 6th Republican president, and we've reached a point where a clear decision has to be made. Given these circumstances, I therefore wish to inform the nation that as of the end of today, the 19th of June 2025, this particular national mourning period is officially over. This will allow the country to begin to return to some normalcy. Mr. Lungu was not only an ordinary citizen, but our 6th Republican president. While we recognize that he belongs to a family, he also belongs to the nation of Zambia. It is therefore correct that our 6th Republican president should be buried in Zambia with full honors and not in any other nation. In the meantime, we urge our citizens to maintain calm and orderliness. As we have stated before, united as a nation and maintain the peace we are known for. In this spirit, we say to the Lungu family, and indeed the people of Zambia, our hearts remain with you. Our doors as government remain open for further engagement as appropriate. May the soul of our departed former Republican president, Mr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, rest in eternal peace. May God bless you all. May God bless Zambia. I thank you.
We continue with our top stories. The Zimbabwean government is facing fierce criticism after reportedly endorsing business mogul Wicknell Chivayo's proposed $400 million contract to supply medical drugs and cancer treatment equipment to state hospitals. Through his recently registered South African company, TTM Global Medical Exports, Chivayo pitched a 4-year deal averaging $110 million annually. Now, critics question why the tender and its Sandton headquarters appear disconnected from Zimbabwe's existing medical infrastructure. Medical and civil society groups now demand transparency and public inquiry, warning the contract may divert urgently needed funds from frontline care. Government spokespersons, including George Charamba and Nick Mangwana, defended the cabinet-approved process. Still, public anger simmers as hospitals such as Sally Mugabe Memorial and Parire Nyatwa continue to suffer from crumbling infrastructure and lack of essential supplies. President Mnangagwa's recent hospital visits are viewed by some as PR play rather than a solution. Chivayo dismissed the allegations as politically motivated, calling leaked documents fake. With Zimbabwe's health system already struggling, many citizens question whether the contract serves public welfare or private enrichment. In our next story, The UK has formally denied a visa to Julius Malema, leader of South Africa's economic freedom fighters, citing extremist rhetoric, alleged support for Hamas, and incendiary public speeches. Malema, intending to speak at a London conference, was informed that his entry would not be conducive to the public good under Home Office rules. The denial has sparked fierce debate in South Africa. EFF supporters condemn it as censorship and a breach of free expression, while opponents claim it reflects justified international concern over Malema's provocative stances. Leaving a diplomatic vacuum among rising tensions. Analysts warn that the move, including its timing ahead of national elections, may influence future political engagements, with London signaling a more assertive posture on extremist speech. Malema, undeterred, defended himself on X, accusing the UK of political suppression and doubling down on his anti-colonial rhetoric. The incident highlights growing global scrutiny of populist leaders and could reshuffle the dynamics of South Africa's international political outreach. In our next story, UNICEF has issued a sobering alert. 13 million children across Eastern and Southern Africa are facing a nutrition crisis, with 4 million afflicted by severe acute malnutrition requiring urgent intervention. According to its Climate Action for the Last Mile report, the crisis stems from climate extremes, droughts, floods, combined with conflict and economic instability in Zambia, Malawi, Ethiopia, Comoros, Mozambique, and Sudan. Zones of famine risk, simultaneous cholera and mpox outbreaks compound pressures on strained health systems. UNICEF is spearheading emergency food distribution, nutrition clinics, wash, water, sanitation, hygiene infrastructure, caregiver education, and community growth monitoring. However, funding shortages threaten comprehensive rollouts. The agency has launched a global fundraising appeal, warning that without support, child mortality will climb sharply. Humanitarian experts emphasize that tackling malnutrition demands a multi-sectoral approach, linking climate resilience, healthcare, strengthening, and peace building. Leaders in Southern Africa are urged to integrate these initiatives into recovery strategies to protect millions of vulnerable children from crisis and long-term developmental harm. Now, the government has declared a national disaster after torrential June rains killed at least 92 people in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, primarily in Mthatha, where homes, schools, healthcare facilities and roads were swept away or damaged. Military forces have been deployed alongside emergency services to assist displaced communities and support rescue teams grappling with hazardous conditions. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu warned that relief workers have faced calamity profiteers dubbed a water mafia targeting aid convoys. President Ramaphosa visited the affected areas, pledging immediate assistance and resources, though opposition parties, including the DA, criticized inadequate preparation and delayed response. UNICEF estimates that over 58 schools and 20 healthcare centers sustained damage, disrupting young people's education and access to essential services. As the area braces for renewed heavy rain, experts advocate shifting from emergency measures toward climate-resilient infrastructure, improved drainage, and early warning systems. This disaster underscores the mounting climate vulnerability of South Africa's poorest regions and the urgent need to address systemic infrastructural and environmental weaknesses. Those have been some of our top stories on Africa Good Morning. We'll continue shortly after the weather. We continue with top stories on Africa Good Morning. As the Israel-Iran conflict escalates, several African nations have begun evacuating their citizens from the region. Ghana has led the charge, closing its Tehran embassy and initiating land route evacuations, including diplomats, students, and professionals. In Israel, it is working on special clearance to evacuate over 900 citizens. Nigeria is also preparing to extract its nationals, with embassies identifying those in need and advising calm. Uganda is focusing on 48 students in Tehran, rerouting evacuations to Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Jordan due to closed airspace. Now, Sudan's transitional government has ordered an immediate withdrawal of its citizens from Iran, while some African states, including South Africa and Mauritania, have condemned Israel's actions. Others remain silent. Turn between strategic alliances. Now, the challenge of evacuating civilians from a war zone remains complex, especially with reliance on land routes and third country cooperation. Memories of South Africa's slow response during the Russia-Ukraine crisis resurface. The communities like Ghana and Uganda are now acting with more urgency. Still, uneven responses underline the need for better emergency frameworks as thousands remain exposed across the volatile Middle East. We stay on the subject of the Middle East as China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke with his Egyptian counterpart Badr Abdelati to address the rapidly worsening situation in the Middle East, particularly the Israel-Iran conflict. Wang condemned Israel's actions as a blatant violation of international law and accused it of dangerously intensifying regional instability. He urged an immediate ceasefire and emphasized the urgency of a de-escalation, calling the moment a critical juncture that demands a unified international response. The Chinese diplomat reaffirmed Beijing's commitment to working closely with Egypt, particularly through multilateral platforms like the United Nations, to push for peace and stability. Both countries agreed on the importance of coordinated diplomatic action, mutual consultation, and supporting initiatives that can lead to reconciliation in the region. Egypt's Badr Abdelati echoed these sentiments, expressing Cairo's willingness to partner with China in pursuing meaningful dialogue and mediation efforts. The phone call reflects a growing alignment between the two nations in responding to global crises, particularly those impacting regional peace and security. As the Israel-Iran conflict enters its second week, both ministers reiterated the urgent need for international unity to prevent further escalation. In our next story, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda are set to sign a peace agreement in Washington on June 27, according to a joint statement with the U.S. State Department. The deal aims to end ongoing hostilities in eastern Congo, where the DRC accuses Rwanda of backing the M23 rebel group. United Nations experts estimate that around 4,000 Rwandan troops have supported the M23, which seized Goma in January and Bukavu in February. The agreement includes provisions to uphold territorial integrity, cease hostilities, disarm rebel groups, and conditionally integrate non-state armed forces. Previous peace talks, including those hosted in Qatar, have failed to produce lasting results. Rebel leader Cornel Kananga of the Congo River Alliance has said international sanctions and mineral agreements with the U.S. wasn't enough to stop the conflict. With more than 100 armed groups competing for control in mineral-rich eastern Congo, the fighting has displaced over 7 million people, creating one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises. Both countries hope this new accord will finally pave the way for lasting stability in the troubled region. And Nigerian company Codex Bio Limited is set to begin large-scale production of HIV and malaria test kits at its new facility in Ogun State, aiming to fill the void left by significant U.S. aid cuts to U.S. aid programs. The U.S., the world's largest humanitarian donor, reduced foreign assistance, impacting health programs across Nigeria. In 2024 alone, U.S. aid contributed $740 million to Nigeria, primarily targeting malaria, HIV, and vaccine distribution. To counter this funding gap, Codex Bio, partnering with South Korean firm SD Biosensor and supported by the World Health Organization, plans to produce up to 147 million test kits annually, with expansion capacity to over 160 million. General Manager Olurewaju Balaja says the company's current capacity meets domestic demand and can scale to serve Western Sub-Saharan Africa. The initiative marks a strategic shift towards local manufacturing to ensure continued access to diagnostic tools, especially in a country with the world's highest malaria burden and the fourth highest HIV rate. Balaja emphasized that the Nigeria government and global donors, including the Global Fund, are expected to source test kits locally through Codex Bio. Those have been our top current affairs stories on Africa Good Morning. Let's have a look at the economic indicators. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning, not just today, but throughout the week, as we brought you the stories affecting the region and indeed the entirety of the continent and beyond. DSTV 285, GOTV 25 and 1up2.com, as well as NTV Africa on YouTube, and Africa Good Morning on TikTok is precisely where you can find us. But for now, we're hoping you have a fantastic weekend. We'll certainly be back on Monday with more top stories from across Africa, as well as the Zambia report from Mike Sichula. From me, Ashwimberi, and the Africa Good Morning team, Swera Zwakanaka.